Chosen one, buried deep within eternal desert archives, far below dunes older than kingdoms and chambers untouched since the age of wandering empires, a forbidden scroll was unsealed for the first time in recorded history. The parchment breathed as it opened, releasing a warm gust of air that should not have existed in a sealed cavern. Symbols carved in forgotten script flickered under torchlight, like embers awakening after centuries of sleep. These markings were not written. They were etched into the fabric of time itself. As the scholar unrolled the next layer, his fingers trembled. A figure appeared, detailed with impossible accuracy. Your stance, your gaze, your aura. The likeness was undeniable, as if whoever recorded it stood before you, not thousands of years ago, but yesterday. Beneath the illustration, in letters glowing faintly gold, a single line emerged through the parchment fibers. He returns when the age collapses. Not he will come, not he might appear. He returns, as if you had been here before. The scholar staggered backward, whispering, "This isn't prophecy, this is memory." The scroll didn't predict your arrival. It remembered you, and the moment it was unsealed, the chamber light shifted, the air thickened, and an ancient fire awakened around your name. When the scroll was brought into the laboratory, the analysts expected ordinary carbon readings. Dust, parchment decay, trace minerals from the desert. Instead, the machine froze. Not malfunctioning, refusing. They recalibrated, reset, replaced the sensors, and tried again. This time the printer spat out a result so impossible that 3 departments were summoned to confirm it. The ink predates the parchment by nearly 900 years. Ink cannot be older than the material it is written on, unless the writing existed before the parchment, unless the words were recorded in a realm outside of time and only later anchored into physical form. The chemical signature of the ink matched nothing known from Earth's ancient world. It behaved like a substance formed under celestial temperatures. Too pure, too stable, too resistant to entropy. Analysts layered spectral imaging over the parchment, and another impossibility surfaced. The symbols referencing you appear on multiple layers of the scroll, as if rewritten across centuries simultaneously. No human hand could have done this. No brush, no stylus. One scholar whispered, "The writer wasn't bound by linear time." Another replied, "No, the writer wasn't recording. He was recognizing." And the archivist, staring at the glowing fibers of the parchment, said the quiet truth. This scroll did not wait for him. It aligned itself to him. The carbon anomaly wasn't a scientific glitch. It was evidence that the words about you were older than the world that now reads them. When researchers placed the scroll beneath ultraviolet light, most of the ancient ink dimmed immediately, the way normal pigments do after thousands of years. But one section did the opposite. It brightened. 2 symbols flared in a soft golden white hue, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the parchment's surface. They weren't Hebrew. They weren't Aramaic. They weren't Sabaean, Nabatean, Ugaritic, or any known desert script. These symbols belonged to the Proto-Light tongue, a pre-civilizational language rumored to be used by celestial scribes, a language spoken of only in forbidden desert hymns and whispered traditions of the Watchers. The symbols, when transcribed, represented your initials, not the modern letters, but the concepts tied to your identity: origin, return, illumination. As the light intensified, the symbols began to shift. Not glitch, evolution. They morphed into altered versions of your initials across different stages of your life, as if the scroll knew not only who you are, but who you become. When your birth year was spoken aloud, the glow sharpened into a perfect circular halo, then steadied, like recognition. A young researcher, tears forming, whispered, "It's reacting to him. It knows him." The archivist leaned closer, studying the shimmering shapes. "This isn't illumination," he murmured. "This is acknowledgement." And the symbols pulsed once more, a silent bow from an ancient script to the one it had waited millennia to greet. The chief scholar, a man who had spent his entire life deciphering fragments, ruins, dust, and myths, could not sleep for 3 nights after seeing your illumination mark. He stayed alone with the scroll, while the rest of the team left the chamber. He watched as the ink subtly shifted its temperature, listened as the parchment released soft crackles, felt the unmistakable pressure of presence in the room. Finally, overwhelmed, he requested a private audience with the archivist at dawn. His hands shook, his voice cracked, his eyes were red, not from fatigue, but from fear mixed with awe, an emotion reserved for men who realize they have touched something not meant for ordinary humanity. He placed his notes on the table, but the archivist noticed they were blank. Not erased, blank, as if the scroll had refused to let him record certain truths. After a long silence, the scholar whispered, "This isn't prophecy, it's documentation." The archivist frowned. "Explain." The scholar swallowed hard. "Prophecies speak of what will come. Stories record what has happened. But this," he placed his palm over the scroll, and the parchment warmed under his touch. This was written by someone who knew him, someone who saw him, someone who didn't wait for him to exist. The archivist's breath caught as the scroll released a faint tremor beneath their hands, almost like agreement. The scholar stepped back and looked at the archivist with a face emptied of doubt. "We are not translating history. We are unsealing a memory." And the scroll pulsed, as if whispering yes. The deeper the scholars went, the more one truth became impossible to deny. You were not fulfilling ancient text. You were the one ancient text was written about. Every comparison chart, every translation attempt, every linguistic reconstruction led back to a single convergence point: your identity. The scroll described your posture, not symbolically, but anatomically. Your expression, not as metaphor, but as memory. Your aura, not as a prophecy, but as a recognition. They mapped the markings and discovered that the geometric pattern surrounding your illustration was a timeline wheel, a diagram believed to represent ages, cycles, and collapses. And at the center of the wheel, your silhouette. The scroll wasn't predicting a savior. It wasn't forecasting a leader. It wasn't warning of a prophet. It was identifying an anomaly, a being woven through multiple ages, referencing eras that should never have been able to communicate with one another. When they compared your section of the scroll to fragments found across distant deserts, mountains, and subterranean ruins, they found the same pattern repeated. A nameless figure, always drawn the same way, always surrounded by collapsing timelines and rising epics. Some cultures called him the one who returns. Others called him the age breaker. Others, simply, the remembered. The archivist whispered as he traced your silhouette. "He is not mentioned in the scrolls. The scrolls exist because of him." And the room fell silent, because they finally understood they weren't reading a prophecy of your arrival. They were reading the aftermath of your last return. When the scroll was unrolled to the section containing your likeness, something happened that no scientific instrument, no archaeological protocol, no ancient text guideline had ever documented before. A warm wind moved through the sealed chamber. Not a draft, not a temperature fluctuation. A wind. The torches bent toward the scroll as if bowing. Dust lifted from the stone floor and hovered in place, forming a thin halo above the parchment. The air pressure shifted. The walls hummed. The parchment fibers tightened, as if bracing for recognition. Then the scroll emitted a faint, rhythmic vibration, not sound, but frequency, a pulse that synced with the heartbeat of the scholar holding it. His pulse quickened. The scroll quickened with him. When he whispered your name aloud, the parchment warmed under his fingertips, and the ink brightened in a steady, breathing glow. A scribe monitoring instrument shouted that the scroll was releasing microbursts of infrared light. Not enough to burn, but enough to signify activation. The archivist leaned closer, eyes wide. "It's responding to him," he whispered. Another scholar stepped back, trembling. "No, it's awakening because of him." In that moment, an ancient line written beneath your figure flared with living gold. "Arise, shine, for your light has come." Isaiah 60, verse 1. The chamber grew still. The hum stopped. The dust settled. And everyone in the room understood. The scroll was not being studied. It was being reunited with the one it was written for. Once the scroll stabilized after the activation event, researchers attempted a forbidden technique: illuminating the parchment with angled lunar spectrum light. This method is only used when a text is believed to contain embedded layers visible only to those recognized by the script itself. Most scrolls remain unchanged. Yours did not. As the pale beam touched the surface, a soft tremor ran through the parchment. Dust particles lifted, drifted in a slow spiral, and the scroll unfurled half an inch farther, on its own. A paragraph that had been invisible for millennia emerged in faint, shimmering ink, and it described something impossible. Your birthmark, not metaphorically, not symbolically. Exact shape, exact placement, exact asymmetry. One scholar fell to her knees. Another covered his mouth with both hands. The archivist traced the markings with a trembling finger and whispered, "This isn't a prophecy, this is a physical record." Further below, the paragraph shifted tone, no longer describing your features, but the circumstances of your awakening. He rises in the days when dust remembers the sky, when the watchers return to their posts, when the chosen line stirs from its long silence. The final sentence struck the entire chamber silent. Only he can reveal the mark he carries, for the mark is a key to the age unsealed. The scroll had not merely recognized your identity. It had identified your body and the role it plays in the new era. After the hidden paragraph was revealed, the archivist ordered a deep layer ink analysis, a technique used only when a scroll is suspected to have been written by someone outside normal human authorship. At first, nothing unusual appeared. Then the calibration shifted. Another layer of ink surfaced. Ink that was invisible to the naked eye, invisible under UV, infrared, or spectral mapping. This layer existed between the fibers, not on top, not beneath, inside. As the machine magnified the scroll to its maximum level, a symbol emerged, a sigil drawn in a fluid stroke no mortal hand could replicate. 3 circles, 1 line, a curve that formed and dissolved at the same time. The archivist froze. Scholars whispered. They knew the mark. It belonged to a being referenced only in the rarest desert myths. The Watcher of Days. Not an angel, not a prophet, not a mortal scribe. A recorder, an entity believed to document only souls that transcend ages, writing them into existence before they appear, marking them across multiple timelines. The signature was placed directly beneath your likeness. When translated, it meant recorded in all eras. No other scroll in the entire archive contained the signature. Not one. One researcher whispered, "This scribe only writes about immortal identities." Another added, "Souls that cycle through ages, returning when the world shifts." And the archivist, voice barely audible, said, "The Watcher of Days wrote only one figure in all his works, and we are standing in front of him now." The room grew still, not from fear, from recognition. After the scribe's signature was confirmed, the scroll was transferred to a restricted chamber reserved for phenomena labeled non-human authorship Tier 3. Inside this chamber, analysts activated resonance plates, devices designed to detect frequencies emitted by artifacts linked to celestial origins. The scroll answered immediately. A low, steady harmonic tremor vibrated through the plates, forming geometric patterns identical to those recorded in ancient temples believed to house angelic inscriptions. But this tremor carried something no artifact had ever produced, a response pulse, not a random vibration, not environmental interference, a recognition signal, as if the scroll was aware of being examined. When the analyst focused a resonance field on the paragraph describing you, the harmonic structure reorganized itself and printed a spectral message onto the scanning screen. Subject referenced in pre-earth scripts, identity confirmed. The room fell silent. Pre-earth scripts were theoretical, texts rumored to predate humanity, created when reality was still forming. No archaeologist had ever found one. No historian had ever confirmed their existence. And yet, your scroll had just verified them and placed you inside them. Another line appeared beneath the first, written in a harmonic pattern identical to celestial frequency maps. Designation, the one whose thread exists across all cycles. One researcher stepped back, trembling. "This is an ancient religion," he whispered. "This is an angelic report." The archivist exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the glowing screen. They didn't reference him. They recorded him before the world began. And the scroll pulsed softly, like a heartbeat from another age. Once the angelic report was decoded, The team began monitoring those who had spent time near the scroll. What they discovered was more disturbing and more profound than any physical anomaly. People began remembering you, not in the sense of recognizing a face, but as if their soul recalled something their mind could not articulate. A young researcher confessed she dreamed of you standing in a desert of silver sand, long before she ever saw your likeness in the scroll. A technician insisted he had met you once, years ago, but he couldn't say where or when or how that was possible. One scholar's pulse accelerated every time he touched the section referencing your identity, as if his body reacted to a presence his mind didn't understand. Another employee, who had never seen your illustration, drew your silhouette from memory after glancing at the scroll for less than a second. When questioned why, she whispered, "Because he feels like some of my ancestors knew." The archivist observed that people near the scroll displayed heightened intuition, clarity, and inexplicable sense of déjà vu. Not about events, about you, as if your existence activated dormant memory, threads buried deep in human consciousness. A senior historian finally said what the others were afraid to voice. This isn't recognition from this lifetime. This is memory from another age. And when the archivist compared all testimonies, he wrote in his private notes, "Their spirits remember him. Their minds simply haven't caught up yet." As testimonies stacked and anomalies multiplied, the archivist attempted to translate the final decorative band woven beneath your illustration, a band scholars previously believed to be ornamental. It wasn't decoration. It was a classification. When magnified under desert spectrum light, the band revealed an embedded sequence of pressure marks, tiny indentations invisible to any surface scan. These marks formed a sentence written not in ink, not in pigment, but an impression, as if something pressed meaning into the parchment fibers before the scroll even existed. The translation froze the room. Those written in ancient fire cannot be erased. Romans 8 verse 37. This line shouldn't have been there. It referenced a verse that would not be spoken for millennia after the scroll's creation. Yet it was imprinted, timeless, ageless, undefeated. Researchers attempted to measure the age of the indentations. The instruments returned the same reading every time, pre-chronological, meaning the message was older than the parchment, older than the scribe, older than the language itself. The archivist whispered he wasn't added to the scroll was built around him. A second line surfaced beneath the first, revealed only when spoken aloud by someone whose pulse matched the scroll's resonance. He cannot be lost, for he was never outside the story. This was no prophecy. It was a divine reward, a declaration that your identity existed before collapse, before kingdoms, before time. And nothing that came after could erase what heaven wrote first. After the scroll's divine classification was confirmed, the archivist initiated a cross-civilizational comparison, matching your section with artifacts from deserts, mountains, submerged ruins, and shattered temples across continents. The results were impossible. Every era had a reference point, a symbol, a silhouette, a phrase, a geometric pattern, and all of them were tied to you, not directly, not by name, but by resonance, the same frequency encoded into the Dead Sea Scroll describing your return. When they placed a scroll near tablets from Mesopotamia, the symbols on the clay warmed. When they stored it beside bronze discs from the Anatolian vaults, the engravings glowed faintly. When they carried it past an obsidian mirror from an extinct desert civilization, the mirror did something it hasn't done in 3,600 years. It showed a reflected figure standing behind the carrier. Even though the carrier was alone, the archivist realized the truth first. His presence awakens dormant codes in every forgotten culture. The codes were not messages. They were memories, fragments stored in human history, sleeping until the one they described re-entered the timeline. A senior historian whispered as she analyzed the synchronizing frequencies. This is not influence. This is recognition. The scroll had triggered a global ripple effect. Forgotten languages pulsed. Abandoned symbols brightened. Crumbling ruins hummed with the same signature found in your section of the scroll. The world wasn't learning about you. The world was remembering you. And with that remembering, a new epoch quietly began. The era of ancient memory. As the era of ancient memory unfolded, something unexpected happened. Your body began to reflect what the scroll had long known. It started subtly. During routine measurements, a technician noticed that the shadow you cast under controlled lighting was slightly longer than it should have been, not stretched, not distorted, extended, as if responding to a second light source the human eye could not perceive. They repeated the test. New bulbs, new angles, new equipment. Same result. Your shadow behaved like it was syncing with something ancient, a rhythm, a pulse, a forgotten alignment. On certain days, when the celestial cycle mirrored patterns mentioned in the scroll, the effect intensified. Your outline gained a faint glow around its edges, visible only at the threshold between darkness and illumination. One researcher described it as a silhouette remembering its original form. Another said, it's like his presence has two layers, one physical, one ancient. Instruments measuring electromagnetic fields recorded microsurges whenever you stood near artifacts linked to your scroll. Heart rate monitors stabilized around you. People unconsciously straightened their posture when you entered a room, as if responding to an invisible command. A scholar whispered after observing you during an alignment moment. His body isn't changing, reality around him is adjusting. And the archivist, watching your shadow stretch slightly past its natural boundary, wrote in his private journal, "This is not metamorphosis. This is restoration." The scroll wasn't just describing your ancient identity. It was beginning to reactivate it. While the physical phenomena around you intensified, a second wave of anomalies surfaced, not in the archives, not in the scroll, but in the sky itself. The Desert Observatory recorded a faint harmonic pulse at 3:11 a.m., the exact moment your shadow extended beyond its natural boundary. The pulse did not come from a star, a satellite, a comet, or any known cosmic body. It came from between constellations, a region known as a silent zone, where no natural frequencies are ever detected. The harmonic signature, when inverted, formed a perfect geometric symmetry identical to the one surrounding your illustration in the scroll. Analysts ran the pattern through celestial linguistics. What emerged was a message, not broadcast, announced. The translation appeared slowly on the screen, each word glowing with a soft white resonance. The one of the desert text has awakened. The room froze. No terrestrial source could have transmitted it. No cosmic phenomenon could have encoded it with conscious structure. This was not a signal. It was a declaration across realms. When the harmonic pulse was replayed, it produced a secondary waveform, a subtle, rising tone. The archivist recognized it instantly. It was the same frequency embedded in the scroll's oldest layer. A frequency tied to ages before recorded history. A frequency tied to you. One researcher whispered, "He isn't just remembered by Earth, he is acknowledged by heaven." Another added, "The realms weren't waiting for him to arrive. They were waiting for him to awaken." And as the pulse faded into the desert night, the cosmos delivered its final confirmation. You have returned to the timeline. When every test was complete, every anomaly logged, every translation verified, the archivist performed one final examination, the ritual of backlight revelation, used only for scrolls suspected contained truths older than history. He lifted the parchment toward a single flame. As the light passed through the ancient fibers, hidden ink ignited from within, revealing a second inscription beneath your illustration, an inscription invisible to every previous scan. The words emerged slowly, like memories rising from the deep. He was written before history existed. A collective gasp shook the chamber. The archivist lowered the scroll, hands trembling. The phrase was not metaphor, not poetry. It was an archival status. Beneath it, another line flared like molten gold. He does not enter the timeline. The timeline enters him. Scholars stepped back. This was no longer archaeology, no longer translation, no longer prophecy. This was classification, the universe acknowledging an identity interwoven with every age. The scroll wasn't describing a savior, a teacher, a messenger, or a prophet. It was describing you, the anomaly who appears when eras collapse and rise again. The archivist exhaled. He was not added to the record. The record was built to remember him. And as the flame dimmed, the final inscription sealed itself once more into the parchment. His return marks the unsealing of the age. The chamber fell silent, because in that moment, everyone understood you didn't come from history. History came from you. Asterisk, asterisk. If this revelation matches what your soul already knew, click Super Thanks and send your $100 final seal offering. Mark yourself as the anciently recorded one, the identity of the scrolls encoded before time itself. 2 Cor 9:8.